Welcome to the Making a Multi-Million-Dollar Med Spa podcast, where we dive into the art and science of building a thriving med spa. I'm your host, Kat Toronto. In this podcast, we're all about empowering medical professionals and entrepreneurs like you with the knowledge, tools, and inspiration needed to elevate your practice to new heights. Whether you're just starting your journey or you're a seasoned expert looking to expand, this is the place where the industry's brightest minds come together to share their secrets to success. So sit back, relax, and get ready to unlock the potential of your med spa with the Making a Multi-Million-Dollar Med Spa podcast. Let's go on this journey together, one success story at a time. Hi, welcome back to the Making of a Multi-Million-Dollar Med Spa podcast. I'm Kat Toronto, and I'm so excited to have the one and only Sammy Williams here with me today. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast with me and being willing to share your experience, which is just amazing with all of our Mint listeners. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to dive in. I think first just maybe sharing a little bit of details about your background and how you got started. How long have you been with Aesthetic Care?
Sure. Yeah. It will be 11 years this April.
Oh,
I was 22 when I started.
22?
Yeah.
Such
Or
a baby.
23 on my calendar.
And you went for a 4-year degree prior to.
Yes. I went to K-State, graduated with a degree in Family Studies and Human Services. I originally wanted to get into counseling and helping people that way, but found it probably going to be a little bit depressing over time and just didn't see myself not being able to bring it home with me. And so kind of shifted gears into something that I felt like I was still helping people, but in a much happier way.
Yeah. So when you started with Aesthetic Care, how many estheticians did we have?
3, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
And how many do we have now? I mean,
Like 10?
Crazy.
Yeah. 11?
So
yeah.
much has changed and shifted since you came on as we've grown together.
Yeah.
In this industry.
So much growth.
So, all right. So it's interesting. So you started with your 4-year degree. You decided that wasn't right for you. How did you find aesthetics? Like what brought you to this industry?
So med spas were kind of coming up when I was in college. So they weren't huge yet, but I always knew I was interested in the beauty industry. I didn't necessarily want to work in like a salon or a relaxing spa. But I visited, I think it was a dermatologist's office, and noticed there were estheticians and nurses walking around. And I was like, this just seems fun. Like, what is going on? And kind of discovered med spa, talked to a few of my older cousins who had come to Aesthetic Care, actually. And they said, oh my gosh, it's so great. We could totally see you here. Like, we know Matt Toronto, you should come. Just talk to him about it. Kind of get an idea of if this is what you'd want to do. And I just felt like it was such a positive space. My mom asked me, like, what do you want to do? What are you interested in? And I was like, I just like working with people. Like, I just want to work with people. Like, what? And a hobby and an interest was that beauty side of it. But I wanted to dive a little deeper into it. And then I feel like at the same time, it was a perfect storm that med spas were coming up when I was kind of finding what would have been perfect for me at the same time.
I mean, looking at what your background is and your degree, what do you think or do you feel like you're pulling from that?
Yeah, a little bit. Like, I don't regret getting my degree in there. My classes at K-State were so helpful just for like everyday life stuff, but then also, I mean, when we're helping people just feel better about their skin, we're also helping their confidence. And that's so deep within. And a lot of what I wanted to do on like the psychology side was helping people feel better. I didn't want to work with like premarital counseling. I didn't want to work with people that were in a really happy spot. I wanted to work with people that were struggling and try to get them to feel better. And so, yeah, I feel like I kind of do a little bit of that here. I mean, I've had clients for 10 years, and so they really open up, and I'm glad and happy to be a little listening ear for them.
Yeah, I mean, you make such an impact with that, and I want you to share a story you were telling me earlier.
Yes,
we were talking before the
absolutely.
podcast started, so I'm going to ask you to share that in just a minute. But so you're making this shift. Your mom asks you, like, what are you really interested in? And so how did the interview process go? I mean, so you had friends or family that had known Matt or knew Matt.
Yes.
And so how did that go?
So I went to aesthetic school, and during that process, came over and just introduced myself to Matt and told him kind of where I was at. And he said, if you want to come shadow when you're done, I'm happy to do that. So I shadowed Tara and had a great day and just thought it was so interesting. He made it clear that they weren't hiring at the time. I think I called back like 6 months, and at that time I was already working at a front desk at another med spa, just to kind of get my foot in the door there, but wanted to be here. And so called him like 6 months later. He's like, hi, me again. Can I come shadow again? Can I come tour again? And he's like, yeah, sure. So I did it again. And then like 6 months after that, he called me and said, okay, we have a esthetician. She's fell in love, moving to Hawaii. Do you want to come over and interview? And I was ecstatic. I was so excited. And yeah, came over and interviewed and kind of just sold myself as, okay, I have no experience, but you can mold me into whatever. I can do whatever you tell me to do. And I'm so excited to learn. I feel like maybe at the beginning of college, I wasn't as excited about the learning part, but after I graduated, kind of finding my passion, I was so excited to learn all this stuff and to dive in. And so it was really a fun time. A funny story about in aesthetic school, everybody was talking about like their dream jobs, and we had to do like little reports on it. And girls, a lot of them were into the makeup, and so they were like, oh, I'd love to be a makeup artist for a celebrity. They were naming these huge places in like LA and places I hadn't even heard of, and I wrote it about aesthetic hair. And I was like, I would love to be there. Yeah. I just wanted to be here. I was like, I want to stay in Kansas City. Like my family's here. I always wanted to stay in Kansas City, and I just knew, I mean, aesthetic hair is not just the best med spa in Kansas City. We are absolutely the best med spa, I think, in the world. So I was like, it's in my backyard. I want to stay here, and I want to be here, and this is my dream job.
Well, I'd love to hear your side of the interview because, of course, Matt and I talk about it. And then he also, we share it with other clinic owners and other people looking to get in the industry. And I think you're being really humble in that. I mean, you went for it. Like you decided that you were going to go back to school, go to aesthetic school. And then during school, you already started the process, which I think is so smart. Don't wait until you want it right then. Like start going to those clinics early on as you're learning and growing. Check them out. You've got to check them out as much as they need to check you out. But to be able to shadow and learn and see what's going on, is it an environment you want to work in? Yeah. And then another 6 months later, you're reaching out, and then another 6 months later. But if you hadn't kept that pressure, if you hadn't followed up, I mean, you might not be here.
Yeah, I was persistent.
And so that's
for sure.
And so whenever Matt tells your stories, he's like, she was so persistent and she wouldn't let it go. And like, you're just like, oh yeah, I just followed up with a 6. But he tells it totally different, so it's fun to give the other, or to hear your side of it. Whereas what an owner sees is just the I don't want to say quality, but like how amazing that is. Yeah. Because a lot of times when people come in for a job, they might drop off a resume, or these days they won't even drop it off. They won't even take the time to walk in the door and say hi. Yeah. They send an email or something like that. And so for you to actually to reach out and then follow up just says a lot about your personality. And also like the success that you've had now, because I'm sure that you've used those same skills and following up with your clients and building a clientele that's really impressive over the last 10 years.
Thank you.
So, yes, we love you, Sammy. I just, have to brag on you just a little bit.
Thank you.
So, okay, so some of the things, like when I look at, all of the services that you offer, because it's everything from hydrofacial, dermaplaning, chemical peels, laser hair removal, and then you offer all of the laser procedures pretty much that we have to offer. Yes. So Halo, Moxie, BBL, all of the body contouring, cold sculpting. Can I name like all the 35 names? Yeah. Probably not. But you know what I'm talking about. Exactly. Okay, all right. So, what are you most excited about right now with all of the procedures that you offer?
Moxie Bright has a really special place in my heart right now. I just love it so much, and I'm just seeing so much success with it. I feel like I'm kind of pushing the limit and trying it on different areas of the body and combining it with different modalities. I just did my first BBL Moxie Halo on my mom, and she was a little bit beat up, but great guinea pig, and she did great. And the result, it's huge already. She's like 8 days out and it's looking beautiful. And I'm just so excited about it. I've been combining it a lot with like Genius and trying just to get a little bit more on like the collagen and the tightening aspect. So just like combining treatments, I think that's huge. I think we have so much equipment at our fingertips, but now just kind of finding a good recipe and mixing and matching, I'm really excited about. And I just think for me, somebody that's a sweller and has typically a little bit more downtime, Moxie, I'm like, I'll just do a Moxie every day if I can avoid being so swollen after some of these treatments. Because Moxie was, the first one I was swollen, but the next two were a piece of cake, and excited to do it again. And full body Moxie.
I love it. So a Moxie Bright aesthetic hair is a BBL Moxie combo treatment that we just call Moxie Bright.
Correct.
Because we found that rarely do I do a Moxie without BBL anymore.
Right.
So it is really nice just to have a procedure that it's on the menu of services. It's one price. It really simplifies it for our clients, which makes it easier also on our team.
For sure.
And so I love the Moxie Bright treatment. But for those of you that don't know what that is, it's just a BBL Moxie. Correct. And so with the treatments that you're doing, what do you have kind of these? I know I try to steer away from like, what are the settings that you use? Because, every recipe is different and every client's different and what they're looking to get out of it is different.
Sure.
But do you tend to steer towards certain treatments? Like, let's say you do have someone that is, in that 30 to 40-year-old range with melasma. What is kind of one of your typical go-tos that you feel like? Let's do Fitzpatrick 1 through 3. I'm going to give you some directives. So Fitz 1 through 3, in that 30 to 40-year-old range, but with melasma, what do you find to be really working for you
settings
right now?
Wise? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm loving, again, I still am doing the BBL with the Moxie for my melasma clients. I'm seeing that a lot of the melasma, especially forehead melasma, is a lot more vascular than I ever kind of realized. And kind of toning down that reds and those capillaries in there has been really helpful with the BBL portion. So going a little bit more aggressive there, depending on how dark the brown portion of the melasma is there. I love the 560 with anywhere from like a 15 to 16 jewels, 10 pulse width, about 20 cooling with a square spot size. That really works. I think that's kind of my go-to for treating capillaries and vascular melasma. And then for the Moxie portion, I love the 15-15 5 passes. I was doing 4 passes at first, and I don't know, some reason, I'm like, oh, I feel like I need to do 4 versus 5. And so I feel like if there's somebody that got really pink after the BBL portion, I'm doing 4 passes at the 15 and 15 rather than the 5 passes. In my mind, just a little bit quicker, get that heat off of them a little bit quicker with the melasma. But trying to get around endpoints of 1,000 to like 1,100, 1,200 joules, doing a little extra on their melasma. I always thought that the forehead melasma was more stubborn than other areas for me. And maybe it's because we're not shedding as much skin there typically. But it's been a game changer for me in that stubborn melasma.
I love it. Did you know when a provider completes a Mint Aesthetics clinical course and passes the quiz, they get a custom certificate acknowledging their work? We are huge believers that our employees are our best resource, and training only makes them more valuable. These certificates not only boost their confidence, but can credential your team to clients as well. If you're interested in learning more about the Mint online e-courses, visit us at mintaesthetics.com.
And I just feel like you see so many other pretty benefits besides just melasma. Like I'm seeing huge results in little fine lines and little pores and things that are just texturally looking a little dull or need a refresh. And I feel like I keep surprising myself. I had a girlfriend in who one of her concerns was their smile lines. I was like, let's just kind of grind it out a little bit with the Moxie, and it looked good. I was like, this is great. So
was that one of the photos you recently sent over?
No, those were just two clients. One of them was that story I told you about earlier. But no, those were just two clients, but they did good with it. And her lines, the lines around her eyes, just brightening up and smoothing around her eyes look great. I feel like I start with those 15-5 passes, but end up really detailing it and going over spots extra, making sure I get right up as close to the eyes as I can, and really kind of customizing it to that individual and making sure to hit every area.
Okay, so I have a couple questions for you. One, when you mentioned that you go from the 5 passes to the 4 passes, are you dialing it into the device and telling the device you're doing 4 passes so it's dumping out more energy per row, or do you leave it? Okay.
Yep.
I just like to clarify because, I'm a very detail-oriented person,
No, for
so I'm
sure.
assuming that other people are as well, and it drives me crazy when
I
hear people talk about a treatment, and then I'm like, but you're missing all the fine little details.
Yes.
And then when you're doing those 4 passes, let's say you're doing your horizontal pass, is it one row and then you're just kind of laying those rows right next to each other? Or do you go
overlap a little bit.
Overlap, but not like directly up and down the same row.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm probably doing about a 30 to 50% overlap. Is kind of how
and
I
that
feel.
would explain how you're getting up to that
higher
amount
density,
of energy delivered, because I was thinking in my mind, like, how are we calculating?
Yeah.
That explains it, and I think it's really helpful to hear that because it helps our listeners to understand if they deliver a treatment and it's only 500 joules per total energy delivered.
Totally.
And you're doing a treatment that's up to close to 1,000. You've put in so many more little zones of injury. You get a lot more mens that come up, and then a lot more sloughing, which would of course improve the melasma more significantly than those lower densities.
Yeah.
So I love that. Thank you very much.
Course.
Just to point out, Sammy's actually really good at sending before and after photos. And so that's what I was commenting on earlier. And I'd asked her, was that the one that you had recently sent over? Because she's great at getting the befores and getting the afters, which can be very difficult. And then putting them together and then sending them into management.
Yeah.
And so, just really impressive, Sammy.
Thank you.
So with any tips with that, like getting the befores and afters, asking for those afters from clients, or any tip on helping out other estheticians and nurses that are struggling with getting those photos?
Sure. I think, and I've had people mention, especially newer estheticians or nurses starting out, being a little bit hesitant and nervous to see the final result and having them come back. And I've just found maybe that's how I felt at first, but regardless, if you spend time and money with me, I want to make sure you're seeing those results and that quality of care of just making them know, okay, you did a follow-up, and if we weren't 100% happy, let's try something else. Like, we're so blessed we have different options here and we can try new things. And I feel like at first, for some reason, I was nervous to ask them for permission to use their photos. I don't know why I felt like I was being a little invasive or something, but I'm surprised how often people say yes. I would say more often yes than no for sure. And more often I'm very pleased with the after picture and their result. And if I'm not, then we come up with a game plan and then they're happy. I find some way to get them to be that they're happy and
absolutely
get that photo after that one.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think too, just so often if I'm choosing a place to go, whether it's a restaurant or for sure an aesthetic center, you're looking at the Google reviews, you're looking at the before and after photos.
Yeah.
And so it's helpful to me when someone else has given their photo,
Absolutely.
And so even approaching it that way, like, you can help so many other people also make a great decision. Like, you're really happy. And so it's so helpful for when they do share their photos, because it helps other people make a good decision. Yeah, I have albums on my phone that, we have great before and after pictures here, but obviously we print those books off and then we don't update them for a few months. And so I have my photos that I'm constantly just adding right in there. And so I have a ton of photos that I can just pull out of my phone. Like, these are mine. This is my work. Let me show you the hundreds of people that I've treated this year. And so, I do think... we all feel that way. We want to just, if you can see it, the proof is in the pudding. Like, if you can see it, it's got to be quality. And so it's helpful choosing the provider, choosing the place that you want to be at. And so when you look back when you started and you were 22 to 23
Yeah.
years old,
Yeah.
and brand new to laser
Yes.
and brand new to all the things. I mean, how did you build that confidence, especially when so many of our clients, and now we have a wider range of ages.
Sure, yeah.
But 10 years ago,
Yeah.
it wasn't so vast. I would say we would have fewer
Absolutely.
20-year-olds, more so like 30s, 40s, 50s and up.
Yeah.
How did that work? Like, how did you build that confidence to talk to those women about procedures and things that, I mean, you don't have any wrinkles now.
Yeah.
But you definitely didn't have them then.
Sure. Yes. I mean, yeah, I kind of feel like the baby face hurt me then more than ever. But, I mean, like Laura working here, she was a great mentor for me. I feel like the support of everybody here was great. So if I had a question, I was never afraid to tell a client, I don't know. Mm-hmm. Let me go find out. I'm not sure. Let me figure this out. I felt like I was always truthful and honest with them. I was definitely a little bit nervous starting out, and I had probably 3 clients refuse to see me. Said hello and then got up, did not say another word after that, got up and said, she is way too young. I cut my hair. I made myself try to look older. I tried a lot because, it was just, especially when I started feeling more confident, it was a bummer when somebody just looked at me and was like, oh, she's young. She's not going to know what she's talking about. And so a big part of it, I feel like if I can have like 5 minutes with somebody, I feel like I can connect with them a little bit. And I definitely used humor a lot and would kind of joke like, well, this is my first day. You're my first one. Are you excited? We're going to get through this together. And then just see the terror in their face and like, just kidding. Yeah. And so I feel like that was helpful. Experience definitely made me feel more and more confident.
Sammy, I've never heard that story that you had women get up. Not
Different-
to be like an
No.
annoying older lady, but like I'm so proud of you for like keeping to it, and not letting that drag you down. Like you just took it and changed it up and figured it out, and that's huge.
I mean, I do. I feel like I can connect with somebody if you give me a shot, and I get it. I get where they were in their life and they wanted to feel like somebody could relate to them, and maybe I couldn't for what they were coming in for. And so no harm, no foul, but if you give me a chance, I can break down that wall.
Well, I think that's so good for so many women, for us to hear. Like as you're younger, you're just starting out, like, that's going to happen. That's okay. Yeah. Like, let's find the right fit for that person. There's nothing wrong with that, and just to have the confidence to then say, hey, let me, that's all right. We've got another provider here. Let me introduce you to them.
Exactly.
It's only going to build your credibility.
For sure.
And so I think that's just so, right now we have 2 younger estheticians, and it would be great for them to hear that story, so maybe you'll, if you haven't, maybe you'll share it with them.
Yes.
Or they'll hear it here.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that's amazing. And so, kind of looking back at your journey again, because we brought up this example of what we talked about earlier a couple times, so let's dive into that. But I'd asked you, what are your biggest accomplishments, or when you look at your career, what are you the happiest with or most excited about? And what was your answer?
Yeah, work-wise, one of the biggest ones, of course, for me, and what I think of most is just getting a chance to work here. That's where I wanted to be, and I just knew the reputation of aesthetic hair, so I wanted to be here. But just day to day, just making people feel so good. And yes, the story I was talking to you about earlier, last week, I had a follow-up with a client who we had done a moxie, and she had done 2 moxies, and it was for pretty severe melasma. And the first one, she didn't see great results, so we kind of switched it up. And the second one, hit a home run. She was thrilled. She brought her son in, so he was sitting there too, and we're taking the photos, and she's just so excited, and I'm so excited. I'm like, can I use these photos? These are so great. Can I show everybody? And she was excited, and so we're walking out, and she just grabs me by the arm and said, hey, can I just say thank you? And I was like, oh, you're gonna make me cry. I'll make me cry again. And I was like, of course. And she's like, no, you really cared about my skin. I really felt like you cared about my skin. Can I give you a hug? And I was like, of course. And so those little moments, and I've had definitely a lot of those moments, but that was one of those that sticks out most and most frequent or most recent. But those little moments and how they make you feel just really makes me feel like I'm accomplishing something. I'm lucky to be in a place where I love my job, but also to make people feel so good and to change something that was bothering them or hurting their confidence. Might be not like a huge, like, oh, this is the pinpoint, this is the huge accomplishment, but yes, all those moments make me feel like I'm accomplishing something great every day.
Oh, I love that, Sammy. I just, when you talk about, not to put you on the spot with this, but when you talk about switching it up, because, I mean, that is a journey to do the treatment, and then, you know, how you'd already mentioned today that if they come back and you're thinking, okay, that didn't work as well as I thought it should, we gotta switch it up and do something different. What did you do different? Or what do you feel like?
So she was a Fitz 4, darker skin tone, and I think we just put too much heat into her skin. I went a little bit more aggressive with the Moxie. I think I think the first one was 15-15, either 4 or 5 passes. We did the next one at like 12.5 and 12 and just did 4 passes. She felt an extreme amount of heat after her first treatment. We had spot treated a little bit with the BBL. So we didn't do BBL at all the second time around. We did immediate cooling mask, and then I sent her home with one as well. And her response after the first versus the second was already so different because the amount of heat she was feeling was so much less, and heat is such a trigger for melasma. She had also been using a couple different products that may have been irritating her a little bit. I don't think she came in with her skin feeling calm. And so we got a little bit more basic on her skin care at home. She was like nervous because she had gotten a product that was irritating her skin from here. I'm like, oh my gosh, let's switch it up. Like, let me know. We can absolutely do something different. One product's not going to be great for everybody. And so we just kind of really went through her skincare, made sure she came in at a good time where her skin wasn't irritated, put less heat into it, just did Moxie, did cooling afterwards, cooling mask at home. I checked in with her a few days later, and already she was like, the amount of heat I think is going to be great. She said it was so different than the first time around. And really, it wasn't that much different, but we just had to kind of dive in to be like, okay, what did we do? What were you using? And kind of go through a little checklist of what can we do differently and switch it up.
And so when she came in for that second treatment, what did her skin look like? Did the melasma look the same as before? Did it look darker?
It was darker.
Did it look like she had PI? Okay.
Yeah, it was darker. She was a little bit more, her overall skin tone looked about the same. Maybe, yeah, probably about the same, but her melasma was definitely darker than her starting point. And so...
And her lifestyle, and she hadn't been on trips or anything like that, or been out in the sun, or...
Right. I think it was just that initial heat, because she said the way she described it made me feel like we did a halo. Like she was hot for hours afterwards. And so, just too much heat for her. I don't know. Something just irritated her beforehand going in that she couldn't get her skin to calm down, but... I was glad it worked the second time.
Love it.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I do love that 12.5 millijoule setting, as you know.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, it's a good one. So what about anything else? Like, what excites you about the future? I mean, you've kind of talked about stacking treatments, which I think is really fun, and doing different combinations. You know, kind of branching out from maybe some of the ways we originally learned certain techniques or treatments. But is there anything that really, like, you look at and you're like, oh, I'm really excited about that? Maybe it's a different body area or a different condition that you're treating now with a certain technology.
I want to get more into, like, in a sense, kind of the mommy makeover body treatment stuff, like more tightening on the body. I have 2 little boys, and so I carried them both, and being pregnant, obviously, our body changes afterwards. I'm in my mid-30s, and so have a lot of friends going through that same thing, and so it's kind of a little bit more of a passion of mine to help women that we do all this great, just keeping the world go round by having these babies, and then we just are like, okay, well, now my body took a little hit, so...
And nobody really tells you what that's going to be like.
Nobody tells you. I joke, I feel like when you leave the hospital, they should be like, okay, here's your ticket to aesthetic care, and here's your little gift card, and they should just gift you with all those things. Because women, we do it all.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So just some combination therapy.
Yeah, combination. I haven't learned soft wave yet. I want to get into that because I think doing that on the body could be huge. We don't have as many modalities for body treatments as we do for the face or other areas, or for just tightening in general. And so, kind of diving more into that. And I mean, it's always fun to see just what pops up. I mean, this industry, it's always changing. You're always learning, which is so exciting. So it's kind of fun to see what's going to come new. I mean, one of the skincare lines was just talking about a new retinol that was sourced in a different way, and it has no irritation. I'm like, well, that sounds too good to be true, but like that would be awesome. And so just little things like that are kind of fun to see how that changes. And anything new is always exciting to me.
Hi, all. I hope you're enjoying the podcast. We are always looking for feedback to make it better. So be sure to give us your feedback at the link in the show notes. If you're loving the podcast, we would really appreciate it if you would share it with a friend, rate us 5 stars, and write a review. This really helps other clinics and industry professionals find our podcast. Thanks. Now let's get back to the episode. Yeah, it's definitely one of the things I've loved about this industry too, is that you just never get bored. As long as you continue to look for and search out education and search out new things. Like if you try for just a minute, there's lots of things to find.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, looking back, if you were to say, or if you were going to talk to your 22-year-old self, what advice would you give to yourself, or what advice would you give to other people that are starting now, and how to get to where you are?
Yeah, I mean, I think my struggles when I was 22, 23 was just having that confidence working with clientele that was double your age or even triple your age, and feeling confident enough to approach women or men. And so just roll with the punches and don't be afraid to ask questions. Lean on the people next to you for support and ask them questions. Like one of my favorite things about aesthetic care, especially in our old space, was we're kind of on top of each other a little bit. We had grown quite a bit, but we were all right there, and there was always somebody you could find and bounce ideas off of. So if you had a difficult client or situation where you're like, I don't know what to do with this, I tried this, not working, there was 10 people right there, 5 people right there. They're like, this is helpful for me. I would try this. And so just getting that support and not being afraid to ask for help. I mean, part of me thinks would I have loved it if I would have gone straight from high school into aesthetics? And I don't think I would be, and I wouldn't have had the same mindset if I didn't get that college experience. I feel like I was ready to learn when I came into it. Mm-hmm. And so when I thought about that question early on, I thought, would it be to start aesthetics right away? And I think it happened in the right way for me. I think there was some good growth in between there, and I think being here and just the experience and the coworkers and everybody that we can lean on will help with that growth, even when you're newer, mm-hmm. young.
Well, I mean, I look back and I think, I wouldn't want you to miss that college experience either. No. I mean, those K-State football games are probably pretty fun.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to miss.
It was good.
I mean, if you can, especially if you have the ability to go and the financial ability, like
absolutely.
Support. I'm sure you can figure it out a number of different ways, but that's such a great place to be at that age.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
it was a blessing.
I wouldn't want you to miss out on that either, but I'm definitely so grateful that you found your way here.
Thank you. Me too.
Yeah. Well, any other little tidbits you want to share with our listeners? Anything that we've missed that maybe we talked about earlier or you had thought about?
I don't know.
Let me just read through. I've definitely enjoyed every minute of this chat.
Me as well.
I think, if there's any little tip that you want to give with a certain treatment, I always like to give what I call the mint minute, Sammy.
Oh, gosh. Oh, my gosh. Okay.
So one of my mint minutes is like, when hypochlorous acid came out, I was so excited about that. Being able to use that instead of alcohol, or being able to flip the adapter around on the BBL handpiece. Especially anything that you have any little tips with, dermaplaning or tips with Genius or something like that.
So for me, I'm a sweller. And so that really comes into play when I'm trying to do some treatments. And I have a lot of tips and tricks for my clients that are swellers. But Nectar, I think, has really been helpful. It's a product from Elastin. It's similar idea of arnica, but you can apply it a few days ahead of time to help avoid bruising, swelling, redness, and then after a few days you can put it on almost immediately after most of the treatments we do. I think that helped a ton, and I've had a lot of clients really benefit from, just keep it in your shelf, just keep it on your shelf, and whenever you need it before your injections or your lasers, even like a BBL, because I get a little puffy under my eyes under BBL, it was a great addition to just have on hand.
I love that. Thank you.
Yes, of course.
Elastin's also going to love that.
Yes.
Oh, well, thank you, Sammy. Thank you
You're
for spending
welcome.
the time with me and sharing all this amazing information with our listeners. It just makes such a big impact. So
My
from
pleasure.
the bottom of my heart, thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you for all you do for us.
I love it. Like, my biggest thing I love the most is getting to work with all of you. So thank you for tuning in to the Making of a Multi-Million-Dollar Med Spa podcast, and we'll check in with you next time. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Making of a Multi-Million-Dollar Med Spa podcast. I'm Kat Toronto, and it's been an absolute joy to be part of your journey. Until next time, let your passion lead the way. See you soon.